Brad Hill here. There is no better way to share a story than around a campfire. And if you are in the Mobile Bay area, there is no better place to get firewood than our friends at Mobile Bay Firewood. This is a family-owned business, and I personally love using their easy-to-light, kiln-dried firewood in my fire pit. So use promo code MBFTSO for $15 off of your next order at mobilebayfirewood.com. Longtime friends of the podcast, the Growley Leather Company is a family-owned leather goods company in southern Alabama. All of their leather goods are designed and handcrafted to come alongside you in your daily life, share in your adventures, and reflect your character. Bryan and I both enjoy products from Growley Leather. So visit growleyleather.com and use promo code TSO2022 for a 15% discount at checkout. Find you a leather journal and fill it with stories from the storied outdoors. This is the Storied Outdoors, a podcast somewhere between Lewis and Tolkien and Lewis and Clark, finding clarity in the stories we tell and the adventures that shape us.
Welcome to the Storied Outdoors. I'm your host, Brian Gill, and I'm alongside my good buddy and co-host, Brad Hill. We have a guest today that I found on Instagram, and today at the recording of this podcast is the first time we've ever met or talked to each other face-to-face. She is Amanda Bridges-Dunn. She is an adventurer, a caver, a kayaker, hiker, waterfall chaser, artifact finder, wife, and mom. And on Instagram, she can be found under the handle Adventuring Light. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us, two strangers, about a podcast called The Storied Outdoors.
Well, thank you for having me. This is my first podcast.
Well, welcome, and we're glad to have you.
That's awesome. Adventuring Light, just right out of the gate. What is that? Where does this come from?
So, I love daylight. I love the sun. So, when it rains a lot of days in a row, I get in my car. I've done this for many, many times for years. I just get in my car and start driving until I see the sun again, until I see light. So when the kids were younger and we were poor and being at home is depressing, I would let the kids up and do this anytime it rained a lot. And so I guess it comes from that. And then also I'm always like chasing the light, the truth that's in Jesus. So.
You'd be driving a lot where I live in Mobile, Alabama.
Oh, yeah. Well, you just get showers. That's not like days on.
No, ma'am. We get gully washers rain.
I'm not moving there then. Can't do that.
Mobile literally is the rainiest city in the country they get more days of rain in Seattle, but Mobile gets more volume than any city in the country.
Really?
It rains a lot.
Make this up.
When it rains, it seriously rains.
Nice. Okay, I did not know that. I'll add that to my list of interesting facts I can tell people.
Yeah, now you know. The more this is not just an entertaining podcast. This is education.
Learning things today. That's right.
Be a lot of driving, especially around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the summertime.
That summer shower afternoons pattern gets you. How about? So Amanda, what is the okay, so you're, all of these things that are outdoors, and that's what drew me to your Instagram account.
Quite a list.
Yeah, it's a huge list of things that it's like you live out in the outside and outdoors. But what is it that drew you to the outdoors and to adventure? I mean, I love that. I mean, all of those things. I'm a huge fan of all of those, except for one. And we're going to talk about it later, but being a caver, I've never done that. And I'm scared of small, closed in places. And some of the places that you get in are very tight. And I'm a little bit nervous to get into that conversation, but let's do it later. So what draws you to the outdoors and adventure?
Okay. So I guess when I was a little girl, my parents have always been hikers. So every single vacation revolved around hiking. I don't, my earliest pictures when I was, not even a year old yet, they were taking me into the Smoky Mountains hiking. And I've always enjoyed it. So I would go to the creek in our neighborhood as a little girl and catch fish, crawfish, bring them all home. They'd all be dead the next day, feed them off breadcrumbs and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't remember a time where I wasn't outside. And I've always just loved it. Just walking outside, and there's no walls. There's tons of stuff to do. You never run out of stuff to do outside. There's tons of stuff to look at. Pretty.
Yeah. So do you, like, on these adventures, does your family go with you, or are you out there just kind of trailblazing out there alone? Get you some good alone time? How does that work? You got 5 kids, and so that's a pretty big commitment there.
So both. So when they were younger and did not have a choice in the matter, everyone loaded up in the car and they always went hiking with us. We went to, on vacation, the Smoky Mountains in Gatlinburg. We always went hiking, and they liked it a lot. And then teenage years came, and then I started having to bribe them to go with me. With the money involved. I think it started out with like a nerd rope, you want a nerd rope? Go hiking with me today. But then, it evolved to money. And actually last year, it's like a low point. I really wanted my oldest daughter to go artifact hunting with me. And she said, if you'll pay my first month's rent next semester, it was like $440.
Wow.
And I did because I wanted to be with her so much. So, but normally it's just different pockets of people. So I'll get the boys to go with me. They still love to go caving. They'll go on short hikes voluntarily. They'll go kayaking at least once a year. My husband's my favorite. He'll always go. 100%.
He's your ride or die.
Always. He always says yes. It's a long story, but there may be a close call, and he's a little nervous about it. So it's okay. That's the only thing he won't do. In mine, he doesn't go into abandoned mines anymore.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't imagine why.
I will take y'all. Look, you say this caving scares you. I will have you caving by the end of the month, and you'll be hooked.
I hope I'm hooked to something, because I feel that's my fear of not being hooked to something, and it just ended up in the bottom of this cave.
Look, it's so addictive. I know you don't think it doesn't seem appealing because it's dark in there, but when you get inside, you have a headlamp on, everything's illuminated, and you realize how gorgeous and intricate everything underground is. You don't even believe it. You're thinking, why don't I know about this? Like, why has no one told me about this before?
No. I have a significant, there's probably some counseling that's needed, but I have some significant claustrophobic issues.
No,
like if you were to put me in a straitjacket, that's the worst possible thing. You could do anything else to me and it would be fine, but you put me in that, it would be over. Like,
okay, what if you could cave and it was 20-foot ceilings the whole time?
Yeah, but there's always that one possibility that you're going to come up on this little place that you got to scoot through. Nope.
But there are caves that are just walking the entire time. You never even have to get down and crawl.
Now, I've been to Ruby Falls, and I like that because it's like you can see the outside. And
if
like,
I can't do this, it ain't happening.
I've got 1 foot basically in the real world and then 1 foot in this cave. And I'm like, oh, this is nice. I like this.
Now, if there's a paved walkway and an elevator and admission being charged, that's not the same.
Okay. What I've seen your pictures, you're like in these spaces that like, I feel like your whole body is touching walls at one time. Like you are in the tightest little spots and you're going through and you're like documenting this stuff. And I'm just like, my hands are sweaty scrolling through Instagram. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, how is she doing this? And like, how do you know what's on the other side of this thing?
Well, you do. That's why you go.
I am not a dwarf. But we call this podcast and Clark, and nope, I do not go underground.
You say that because even when I watch the videos, it makes me nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, did I do that? But when you're in the moment, you are dying to know what's on the other side of this crawl. You cannot go back without knowing what's back there. What if there's something really amazing back there? You have to crawl to get there.
We'll find out later. I'll let somebody else tell me.
Well, so you have found some pretty amazing things. I mean, there's some really cool things that you found. Like just I think you have a group that you go with, and you guys are doing some amazing discoveries here. So we have this question we like to ask, and say we're sitting around a campfire. and we're all telling stories. What is your go-to story that has kind of like shaped you, or it's really just a kind of a wow story that you always like to tell, and it's kind of like your wow moment? So what is that story for you?
Oh, so I don't have one yet. I don't have like a defining story yet, but I guess there's been several times where I thought, this is it, I'm going to die. I think the first time, and the reason I got into caving, I think it was maybe 2016 or 2017. I was in Stevens Gap, and we had seen a picture online, a friend and I had. So we were like, hey, let's go there. Have you ever heard of Stevens Gap?
Mm-mm.
It's in North Alabama. It's probably Alabama's most popular cave. It's very, very pretty. If you look it up, Google it, it's got these beautiful light rays coming down onto this pedestal. And so you can walk into the cave or you can rappel in. So we, of course, walked in. We're brand new. And look, I was wearing a tank top and cut off jean shorts. And I think I had on like Tevas, or I think y'all call them Tevas, mm-hmm. like nothing serious that you would cave in. I didn't even have there was no helmet. I had a headlamp and a cell phone for light. So anyway, me and my friend decided we'd go in there, and I really wanted to get onto the pedestal. There's a beautiful waterfall in the background. Well, the night before it had rained torrential downpour. It rained so much that the rain was just pouring down into this cave, into this canyon. And so usually where you would walk, it's a dry area with a few rocks, it was a river. And I was like, oh God, if the river goes straight by the pedestal and down, and 50 feet down, you'll die if you miss it. But I was determined to get onto the pedestal. And I was like, I think I can do it, Bryan. Will you just film for me? He's like, I feel like I'll be filming your death. So we'll just do it, just hit record. And if I make it, it'll be a good video
It'll be real cool. If I don't, well you'll go to counseling.
Yeah, you'll be in trauma counseling the rest of your life. So actually I did make it, and it was very scary. The water was pushing me the entire time, but it pushed me against the pedestal. I climbed up, and your adrenaline's pumping, and I'm like, I made it. And of course, I've got pictures somewhere on my Instagram account of that. And it was the most amazing moment. I was like, I want to do this every single day. This was the best adventure ever. And then, of course, I had to get down off the pedestal and climb out against the water, which
that's hard to do.
It was horrifying. The whole video, I think it's on those little dots on your Instagram. It's on one of those.
Okay.
But it was scary. And so I guess I tell that story sometime, or just show the video. That's my campfire story.
So when you think about that, why was it scary? Like, what do you reflect on when you think about what could have been? What are some reflections that you have on that adventure? Because that's really what it's about. Like, it's not just about the moment, right?
So why was it scary? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what'd you learn from it?
So, I could have died very easily. People have died in that cave. There's all these signs
really?
Now. Oh yeah, several people have died in that cave. But just the adventure, seeing if I could do it, see if I could push myself to the limits. I mean, don't we all want to do that? To get somewhere that's beautiful, that you've seen in a picture, and just be there in that moment. Look, I did it. It's amazing. And going where many people haven't gone. So that's, that cave. Okay, a whole lot of people have gone there since 2017, but it wasn't as popular then. And so, but in caving in general, not many people get to go, and you get to go somewhere and there are billions of people on this planet, and you get to be somewhere that very few people get to see. That's amazing.
It's a pretty neat draw. I mean, you think about that, one of like Brad said, our podcast, we say it's somewhere between Lewis and Tolkien and Lewis and Clark, and these adventurers going out into the unknown and going where very few people have been. There's a draw to that, and if you have that in you, that's an itch that has to be scratched. I feel
yes, absolutely. I mean, we left there going, okay, where can we go next? What do we know about another cave? Is there any other cave? We actually Googled it and found Tumbling Rock Cave. It's it's a good starter cave in Alabama, but you should also have like equipment with you. And by that time, headlamp batteries had run out, and I think we left them on, and all we had were our cell phone lights. So real cavers came out in front of us, and they have all this gear on and everything. And there we are in cutoffs, like redneck white trash. We got on cutoffs and tank top, a baseball cap with no headlamp, and a cell phone.
Hey, y'all, we're going to go down in the cave.
And no one, like, I feel like looking back, like someone should have stopped us and been like, hey, like,
let's think about this.
Can we help you? Do you need a headlamp?
Are you new here?
Bless your heart.
That's a southern way of saying you're an idiot.
Exactly.
Where does that? You said everybody wants to do that, but I'm here to tell you that not everybody wants that. Like caving, and I'm not joking, not just pushing back to our earlier part of the conversation. Like I genuinely, like I have a real problem with enclosed spaces. Like if you want to see me freak out, you put me in a bear hug and try to hold me, and you better hold on. Like
there's many people that could hold you, Brad.
I would lose it. And there's probably some deep psychological issues that comes from. But I genuinely have a fear of like really tight spaces. I can go underground. That doesn't really bother me. I can go under house. But if I can't move, I'll lose it, man. But I don't mind heights. Like, and I'll get up on. I've rappelled out of the top of a fire tower before.
Really?
Heights don't bother me because I feel like I've got space. You know, I don't know why. It's probably weird. I'm telling you, psychological problems.
Space to fall and die.
I'm okay with that. At least I can move and at least reach to grab something. But not everybody has that adventurous spirit, right? Not everybody wants to go. I want to go where no one's gone before. A lot of people are really content to stay at home.
I think so, but only because they've never tried it before.
Maybe. But where do you think that comes from, though? Where does that desire come from to go where no one's gone before? I want to go in the back of this cave where no one's ever been before.
I don't know. I mean, it's a trick question. I not studied it.
It's not a wrong answer either.
You know, I guess we're all born with that. You know, some people are just born with a more adventurous spirit than others, and maybe it's because I've been outside all my life. And I'm curious. I do ask a lot of questions in life in general. My boss literally hates it, but I need to know the why, and I need to know what's out there and what's back there, and I just have to know. Mm-hmm. I'm not nosy though. I'm not a nosy like in people's personal lives, but I do need to know what's in there.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Well, I mean, our kids are different. I know within my two children, they're very different, and their desire to go in the woods in the dark. Is very different. My son's like, "Oh, let's go, dude."
Yeah.
My daughter's like, I don't know.
What about? Can I ask you a question? Is that allowed?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
So you said that you took your kids bike riding, over by a creek in Homewood. So that's Shades Creek. Have you ever been in Shades Creek at night herping?
Herping?
It's when you go look for snakes and turtles on purpose.
Sorry. I was,
in your married adult days with children herping, like it's looking for snakes and stuff. It's really cool.
No, I've never done that. And I mean, I typically try to stay away from snakes. Honestly, I don't mind, like my I don't try to look for them. If I find them, I'm not one to kill a good snake, that type of thing. But if it's in my yard, I try to take it at least to my neighbor's yard.
Listen to me. Herping is like Jesus because it will change your life. Okay. You will fall in love with it. I'm telling you, if you have boys love it. They're obsessed. The first time they're hooked, they want to go every night. It's wonderful.
So tell me, like, what kind of snakes are you talking about? Are you talking about, I mean, I don't want to herp around like a water moccasin or something.
Right. So this is why we go, like Shades Creek is a really good creek to go to. It's like, there's a lot of industry around it. And according to my herping friends who are experts, there are no water moccasins in that creek. There are copperheads along the bank, but you're fine. Are snapping turtles, yes, but mostly just midland water snakes. They're just harmless, non-venomous snakes, easy to catch. They still bite you, but it doesn't hurt. So
let me tell you where you don't go herping. That's the Delta. That's the Delta in Mobile.
Okay, yes, that is scary.
I feel like you'd herp up on a boa constrictor or something down there.
It's
You know
possible,
what?
or a 16-foot alligator.
Alligators.
Yeah, the
Oh my
last time I
gosh.
was there paddling, it was like last May. I was paddling. I started at the Rice Landing, and I was going to Bayou Jessamine. So I'm going through all these little bitty canals, and I was in an inflatable kayak because nothing makes you feel like more excited than being in an inflatable kayak in a place where there's alligators. And there were on the main channel.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah,
They were big. I couldn't believe it.
They are.
Yeah, I grew up in Eufaula, and I mean, honestly, so we had to put a fence in our backyard, not to keep our dog in, but to keep the alligators out. There were two different times where my dad and I had to help the game warden duct tape the mouth of a 7 to 8 foot alligator that was in our backyard. And so we were like, we probably need a fence. So
You probably need a new house. That's crazy.
yeah, it's time to burn it down, move away.
I had no idea y'all had that many alligators in Eufaula. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, there was. I think the state record was killed. It was about a 15-footer, I believe, and that thing's like a dinosaur. I mean, it literally looks like a dinosaur.
Oh, yeah.
Last year, Brian, you'll love this. Last year on the campus of University of Mobile, where my wife works and where I attended school down here in North Mobile County, a little Baptist college. It's a huge piece of property, but they found some on the disc golf course. There were some young men on the disc golf course, and they discovered. I don't remember how big he was, but I know it was a large enough alligator that when the game warden got there, he said he's too big for us to relocate. It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous for us to relocate, and they euthanized him because it was too scary.
How did they euthanize him?
I wasn't there, but he was no longer living because it was too dangerous for them to try to move him. And this was on campus at UM.
Wow, there's a whole lot of them. There's plenty. It's fine.
Yeah,
there's a lot of them.
They're not going extinct anytime soon.
No, there's no danger of that. It's true.
So herping down here is out of the question for the most part.
Yeah.
That's a new term for me. I'm going to be honest. That's a new term for me.
Yeah, that one threw me off. I was,
I wasn't sure if she would. You warned us about, like, if I go redneck Alabama. I was like, it's one of those made up terms. Never heard that one.
You're going to Google it now. It's a real thing.
Hey man, we learned something on the Storied Outdoors.
Oh yeah, this is an educational podcast.
There you go. Now
is Alabama? So let's talk about caving a little bit. Is Alabama a good place to cave? Are there a lot of caves in Alabama?
Alabama is an excellent place to cave. There are thousands of caves in Alabama. Can you believe that?
That's incredible. That just blows my mind. Actually,
I didn't know that until I was an adult. Yeah.
So okay, you said Stevens Gap.
So the northeastern part of Alabama has the best caves. So there's a section of the United States called TAG. It's Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. So where Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia all touch, those are some of the best caves in the world. Not just in the United States, in the world. There are amazing caves there. And cavers, we're very secretive about locations. We don't tell people because, number one, they could die. Safety issue. If you just go hopping off in a hole and you don't know what you're doing, you could very easily die, and people have. Also, unfortunately, people, sometimes they vandalize things and leave beer cans everywhere, graffiti. So, so we don't give out locations. You have to be in one of the grottos, like one of the caving clubs for that.
So, okay. So, I mean, when you're talking about caving, are you talking about like, hey, we're walking through a wood. There's a hole. Let's go check that out.
Yes. Actually, sometimes it's exactly like that.
I mean, okay. And then you have this gear with you and how do you know, like, going into this thing, like if it's something that's like, okay, I feel like we can explore this, or you know what, let's just pass. I mean, how do you come to that decision? Like, what's the criteria for going caving on this?
Well, so we go ridge walking. That's when you're finding new caves, or sometimes we're just caving and, you have coordinates for a cave, but you get there and you're like, all right, there's a whole bunch of rocks around here. Which one is it? Which hole in the ground is it? And so we all gather around the hole and we're like, all right, be quiet. We take a rock and you throw it down there and you listen to see how far. Very scientific method. Okay. So you listen to see how far it goes. And if it hits a bunch of things and keeps going, and if it sounds like it would go a long way, you hop down there, someone gets on rope first, you tie it around a tree and you go.
That's
So usually
incredible.
people are like really anxious to go first. I am not. I usually let someone else go first. I don't have a problem with that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you go down there and you start exploring. It's really, you can find some amazing things that way.
I imagine. I mean, what's the coolest thing you've ever found?
So we found some caves earlier this year, ridge walking. I guess it was in January. You know what? I don't know, December or January. And I got to help name a cave. So if you find it and you go in first, you get to help name it. So that's kind of fun. And
That's
then
cool.
I guess just finding a cave that no one else has located before or been in. So you just go ridge walking in these areas of North Alabama that not many people have gone to, or sometimes it's private property. Um,
We
but
won't tell
We
anybody.
won't tell
right,
anybody.
well, soul, thank you. But that's where the good ones are because no one's supposed to go there. And anyway, you just hop in the hole and crawl around and you document. You measure and see what all's in there. Write down some defining features of the cave. It's just amazing. And sometimes there's waterfalls in there. That's
Yeah.
all I highlight.
Now, I also understand that there are other things that like to go into caves also. Have
Yes.
you guys ever discovered any large mammals in those said caves?
Unfortunately, not. There's always cave crawfish. They're just clear
Well, those
crawfish.
are not the things I'm worried about.
When there's no look, I wish we would find a bear. That would be fantastic or something cool, but nothing. Like we found it with pack rats sometimes, and not even a raccoon. There's really nothing good. Like just crawfish, some cavefish sometimes. A lot of things I've been under there for a long time, they're all white.
Hmm.
They've been there for so long. And then that's it.
Any herps down there?
You know what? Sometimes in the open air pits where there's a lot of daylight and it gets daylight every day. Yeah, there are definitely venomous snakes down there.
Wow. So okay, all right.
Just picture yourself rappelling into like a 200-foot cave and then maybe landing on a venomous snake. That's scary.
I mean that's just
Indiana
like
Jones.
Final Destination stuff here. So
Indiana Jones. Why did it have to be snakes?
Why did it have to be snakes?
Right.
How does somebody get into this? Like, say there are people listening and they're like, this really sounds exciting. How does somebody get into caving? You mentioned something about a grotto. Is that a group of cavers?
Correct. So if you go to caves.org and it's like, find a grotto or find a caving club, I think is one of the options. And so you just type in your zip code and it tells you all the caving clubs in your area. And then most of them are on Facebook. So that's a pretty easy way to locate people. And then they'll tell you when their next meeting is. Everyone has like at least monthly meetings. And we get together like once or twice a month to go caving. And then you meet people when you're there. And you kind of break off into groups and go caving with people, when your schedule allows. That's how you get involved. And it's really good to get involved because number one, you don't know where the caves are if you don't get involved. So where are you going to go? And, just to know this, learn the safety stuff and know what kind of equipment to buy and not to buy. That's important.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And cavers. Okay, so cavers are, I am a caver, but, most cavers they love to camp out. They're very, very outdoorsy, and they're also kind of wild partiers. So, the first time I went to camp out with a bunch of cavers, I didn't really feel, so I'm more of an Airbnb. I like to camp. Okay. I camp by myself with my family. When it was with a whole group of people that I don't know and everybody's like partying and staying up late, I'm not a late night person. I just take it to the Airbnb down the street because, I'm not sure about these people yet. Right. So,
Right.
That's my experience with caving camping, but, I just don't stay up that late.
We talked a little earlier. Bryan asked the question, what do we call you? Like a caver or spelunker. Can you help us as to why that term's pretty prevalent, but why cavers don't really appreciate the term spelunker or spelunking?
Well, some of them do, but caver is only 2 syllables. There you go.
It's a little hard word to say.
Okay.
I think spelunking. I think one of them is like the scientific, people who go underground for science, and one of them is geared like cavers is more geared towards people who are doing it as like a recreation.
Ah, okay.
But we're both. We all like science too.
Yeah.
All right. So we, you talked talked about Jesus a little bit earlier, and so let's shift gears just a tad. So being outdoors, we like to talk about the power of reflection and how does God use the outdoors to shape us. So, in what ways does the outdoors help you to experience God?
Okay, so I guess just being outside and being part of something that is so huge that where every little thing works together so perfectly. Everything is dependent on something else. And just seeing the vastness of the world, of the universe, it takes our breath away. It never gets old. And sometimes, if I'm having a bad day, at work or something, just walking outside and just sitting for a minute and being quiet and looking around, I just realized I'm just a small part of something that's so big. And the person who created this, God who created this, he's in charge. He's got it, If he can do all of this, he's got me. It's very comforting.
Yeah, Brad, who was it that said, you never walk away from the Grand Canyon thinking more of yourself? Who was that?
Yeah, I think it was Lewis.
Yeah,
not Lewis. Lewis. John Piper.
John Piper. Yeah. So the more I'm outside, I'm with you on that one, Amanda. You kind of get to know different parts of God in a different way, and these adventures help me to understand how big he is and how much I'm reliant on him for breath, for life, all of these things. And you're right. I mean, it's just that the world is so big and he's got it.
There was a time, and this is like kind of a simple story, but this is probably 15 years ago. We were going through a really rough patch in our lives, just with we were doing foster care. We had a baby that was about to leave. We'd had her for 11 months. And anyway, we're outside with the neighbors a lot because she liked to be outside. So did I. And so I had planted some milkweed in our yard. And that's, what monarch butterflies love. Now, never mind the fact that we've never seen a monarch butterfly in our neighborhood. But, I just had hopes this year that I could plant this milkweed and that monarch would come. So I'm in the street at the neighbor's house. And I just started praying, Lord, such a little thing, but I would love it if a butterfly could just land on my milkweed and just lay a couple of eggs, and I could just watch these caterpillars grow and transform. That would be awesome. Not 5 minutes later, I mean, I'm telling you, almost at that exact, just as my prayer ended, I'm walking across the street, and a monarch butterfly floats across, lands on my milkweed. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it did. And this monarch butterfly I'm telling you, I've never seen one in my neighborhood before. And so it lays 2 little eggs on the leaves of this plant. And I got to watch the caterpillars grow and change. And then they formed a chrysalis. They crawled off and formed a chrysalis. I was just so amazed, just a God that cares about this redneck girl in Alabama, and he would let me see that.
One time, when I think about caves and thinking about talking about caves, I got to travel. I work for a church here in Mobile, and I worked with an organization that did work amongst the persecuted globally, and so I got to travel to Egypt to work with some of the persecuted believers there in Egypt, and we were there as tourists. It was kind of our cover, but in the evenings we were spending time with believers who undergo persecution on a regular basis. And but one of the churches there is literally in a cave, like it's a cave. But when I say a cave, it's enormous, and it's sort of like an amphitheater style cave. But when you're looking at it in the front, you see this church, and in the front of the church you walk in, and then as you walk back, it just descends down into this hill. And when I say amphitheater, it seats about 15,000.
So you have been in a cave.
Yeah, well, this was an open air cave, but the amphitheater receded back into the backside of this mountain, and then there was a church. It was an Orthodox, so this was like a Coptic, if you've ever heard of the Coptic Orthodox believers in Egypt. They're it's like Russian Orthodox with Orthodox Church, Greek Orthodox, but they're Coptic, and so they're specific to this area. And this unbelievable like church carved into the back side or the deep part of this cave, and it went all the way down. It was huge. I'll put up a picture of it. But the thing that I came away thinking about, and as you talked about, like finding a cave and then going down into it, was we're so often caught up with what's on the surface, and we underestimate what's beneath.
That's so true. Yeah.
And when I stood there and looked, I had no idea what was behind and down, and it was incredible to stand there and look, and then to walk and to see this place that all these believers that they had carved out of stone. Like it wasn't, there weren't bleachers built into it; they were carved out of stone. And this beautiful auditorium in the bottom side of this cave that opened up into this massive open air amphitheater in the really a rougher part of Egypt. Inside of Cairo, there's an area that's around a trash dump, and it's where a lot of outcast people live. And this church is built there, and it's really incredible. But
why are you not a caver?
Because I hate tight spaces.
There's caves like that. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. But that's the thing I think about is like if I reflect on that moment, I think about there's so much. And how many times do we do that with people? As a pastor, how many times do you settle for what's on the surface? But if you go do a little digging, there's a lot. But you have to get down into some uncomfortable places, right?
Right.
When I reflect on that with people, especially, like it gets very uncomfortable if I'm in the midst of, say, marriage counseling or what have you, and it gets really uncomfortable. And I think there's been a couple of times that I'm like, I wish I could be in a tight space, maybe. and conversations with couples in really awkward
Sure.
times in their life. So I guess that's the thing as I reflect on, my experiences with caves is, there's a lot. It reveals how much there is beneath, and then how much of that is in our own hearts of people is like there's a lot beneath, but it takes those experiences to kind of reveal that in ourselves.
I think so. Some of the really pretty, highly decorated caves, they have just a ton of formations, and these formations are made from dripping water coming from the surface, bringing minerals and dirt along the way to deposit, and just something that's so really decaying matter on the Earth's surface trickles through all of these cracks and starts making these gorgeous formations that just that death and decay from that could come something beautiful, and it's alive. And so you when you go into these caves, or when I go into these caves, I think when I see all these gorgeous formations, I think just something that's so beautiful and so detailed. I mean, these tiny, if you look up close or have a macro lens with you, you can see these teeny tiny crystals that are so detailed and intricate, like snowflakes or coral reefs or something. I mean, God knew when he created all of this, when he put all of this into place, he knew that very few people will ever get to see it. And there were some caves that will never be discovered. Yet he saw fit to put that much detail into something that most of us will never see. It just blows my mind. It's amazing.
Here we go. I think I can show you. So if you stand at the front, that's the church.
Wow, that's beautiful.
All right. That's what's behind it.
Oh my! Yeah, we need to put those pictures on the
amazing
on the show notes.
That's down in the cave, right?
So it's not like hidden, like people know it's there.
Oh yeah, no, this is a huge ordeal.
That's really cool.
Wow.
See, that's the top of the church in the background back there.
That's amazing.
It's crazy. It's mind blowing when you walk through. You're like, oh my gosh, I totally didn't expect that to unfold behind this little bitty church on the side of the hill. And it just went down into this, and I think it's literally called the Cave Church, something like that.
Oh, that's cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I'll put those up. That was a great experience. Also, I didn't really enjoy it, but it was worth it because King Tut was at the end. I got to go to down into what they call Upper Egypt, right? And that's down into the Valley of the Kings, where Tut was buried. And
wow,
Oh, that's amazing. I would love to see that.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
So
It's a lifetime experience. It's amazing.
my only caving story is I was in Delphi, Greece, and so there's the legend there in Delphi is that underneath all of these these Greek ruins, there would be a place where the oracle would go, and so she would go under there and have an experience and would come out, and like her voice would be changed, and she would be talking and giving all of these prophecies to the people there. Well, we found that hole, and it had been kind of discovered later on, thousands of years later, that when she would go down there, there were gases being released from the earth. I think helium, and
she was hallucinating.
And she was hallucinating, and her voice was high. You know how you can suck the helium out of a balloon, and so they thought that this was some kind of message from the gods, and she was just high as a kite.
Yeah.
So we found that hole, and we went to it, and like we didn't know really where it was going to go, but it popped out on the other side of the ruins there. So that was a pretty tight space, but it wasn't really a cave. It was just a really deep hole that people had kind of enclosed. And so, yeah, so that's my caving story.
Wait, did you go down into that cave?
We did, yeah.
Oh, you did. Did you sound like helium too?
Talking like this, man?
Yeah, everybody was talking the same, so we didn't really know.
I thought it was about to be a herping story for a second. I was like, no.
All of a sudden, I had this 12-year addiction to helium. So.
Yeah, I really like birthday parties.
What are we going to do with these balloons?
I've always been afraid that I'll be the one person that died or something. So I've never done it.
Oh, yeah. So, all right. So, we've talked about a lot of things. We talked about, caving, waterfall chasing. We haven't talked a whole lot about artifact finding. So whenever you go out looking for artifacts, we're talking about artifacts that are thousands of years old, right? I mean, these are arrowheads, pottery, things like that. What is your favorite find that you've had so far?
And can you tell about it?
I know, right? So I can't tell you where I found
There's some rules about that, right?
Okay, so there are some rules, so laws about it for sure, and definitely some federal laws about it. So, but here's the deal. This is how you know in Alabama you're always safe if someone owns a field, you can talk to that landowner and you can surface hunt. So I only surface hunt. I really don't dig. Mm-hmm. I have no desire to dig. Right. Never have. But sometimes if you find some really nice fields owned by farmers near the river, I mean, you can hit the jackpot. They plow a certain section. And so this new method of farming where they don't plow anymore, they just kind of do a line, saves gas and all this kind of stuff. Well, every few years they still plow and disc it anyway. And so those are the good years to go. I mean, I could spend 12 hours. But one day I found like a piece of it was a pendant. So it was like really cool, like tribal looking tribal necklace. Cool. And it was made of stone and like carved, and it was sanded down, and it had a hole in it. It was broken. So I've got both pieces of it though. But that was, of course, I found tons of arrowheads and pottery, decorated pottery, but that one was cool because someone wore that. It was personal.
Wow.
Made for somebody. I actually have a couple of things like that. One of them is definitely a pendant. The other looks like it might be jewelry, like beads or something, but those are always my favorite because number one, they're very rare. I don't find them often, and they're personal. It was someone's decoration. It was like, it wasn't, with the arrowheads and stuff like that. They had to have that to survive, to kill animals, but this was like, a luxury.
Wow.
That's special. Fancy jewelry. That's right.
That is cool.
Yeah. To think about like the last person to hold an arrowhead or something, you think about what was going through, what were they thinking about, what was on their mind, as they went about their daily lives, and
yeah. I have one friend I trust enough to go artifact hunting with, just one, besides like my immediate family. And he always said it's like shaking hands with an Indian.
Mm-hmm.
Last person to touch this was an Indian. It's true, or Native American.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, it is.
You know, what's interesting is, I mean, in the scheme of time, right? You know, from the past to now, like there's such a small section of time where we didn't need those things.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Like, I don't need an arrowhead to find my food.
Really?
Right now.
Okay.
You know, you don't have to hunt. We don't have to hunt to get our food.
Right.
I mean, for the past couple hundred years.
You're right.
You know, but in the grand scheme of all time,
True.
this is a very small section of time where people didn't need those things.
Yeah.
That's true.
So that technology was really important to be able to make, you know, a stone point. And so to think about, he needed that whoever that person is needed that thing to be able to feed his family. We don't necessarily need that. We don't even need a gun. You know, I mean, I guess you could go into the supermarket and stab something, you know, feel bad. I don't think they'd really appreciate that very much. Down at the Publix. I think I've seen a video of a guy going in there and shooting stuff with like his bow or whatever.
Like, please don't.
That's so funny. You're right, though.
But,
I mean, that was such a staple for many years, and they had to make them all. And it's just, you know, having come as far as we have in such short amount of time, it's fascinating.
I'll be hungry a lot, I think. Think about how many we have to make and attach to something and throw it or whatever to catch something. I mean, you would have to be so good. That would be a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of calories burned just to catch something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be scrolling on the Facebook.
He's sitting around a fire and, chipping away at flint.
Telling stories, you know, chipping away at flint, because tomorrow we're going to actually hit that thing, you know?
Yeah. I might chase squirrels into a hole or something and then grab them out. That'd be my method.
Yeah, you'd have a trap in some cave or something that you're like, you know what, go into that cave.
That's right. Put some like nuts or whatever squirrels eat. Put some nuts in there and have a little, you know, hole dug in front of it. Boom. Call it dinner.
A little snare.
Very little calories involved.
That's amazing.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I love learning new things, and caving is something I know zero about other than you know, what I've seen on TV.
We didn't know about herping either.
Yeah, herping.
We learned about herping.
Yeah.
And you're going to get to go.
And yeah, you know, and it's just right down the road from where I live. So maybe that's an opportunity.
There you go.
You know, take the kids out there. My daughter, she will grab a frog in a minute. I mean, she is unafraid. We have skinks in our backyard, and so she'll grab those. And I'm like, I don't really know if these things are poisonous, but you know, go for it. You know,
they're not. But you know, seriously, go at night.
Yeah.
Look, we have a group of guys we go with. We'll invite you next time.
Yeah, give me a shout. We'll see how it goes.
I'm gonna keep inviting you.
You'll hear me scream like a girl. And I mean, just like my daughter I scream louder than my daughter if something, you know, herped up on me.
Herped up on you? Hey, man, there's nothing creepier than going out to a pond and shining a flashlight out there and seeing all those eyes look at you.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you know,
down here, they come with teeth.
Yeah, that's the thing. With Dad and I would go fishing for crappie, and you have that crappie light, you know, bring the minnows up. Well, every now and then we would shine it just out across the bank, and there'd be those gator eyes, and it's like, oh my goodness. Yeah,
that's what we need to go herping in my bill. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Look, we won't try to catch anything.
Yeah.
There's stuff trying to catch you down there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Hey, so the last question we like to ask all of our guests is, what is your next adventure? So I know that is like a weekly changing thing, and this is going to be airing in the fall. So what is your next big adventure, I would say?
So I actually, let's see, later this month, I think in a week or so, I am going with Alabama Power to film a commercial. They invited me to film a commercial in a cave.
Cool.
So I don't even know what that's going to look like exactly. But yeah, I'm going. It sounded like fun, and I'm going to take off work to go.
There you go.
Well, there you go.
That's my next adventure. That, and I'm sure I'll go kayaking a lot this summer.
Is this an undisclosed location, or is this a popular cave, or is this one of the one that you named?
It's Stevens Gap. We're going to rappel, and I'm going to take a couple people with me, and we're going to rappel, and they're going to film it for a commercial. It'll probably be one of those things where they just, it's commercial with all these other things in it. And it'll just be one little blip, with us rappelling, but it's still pretty cool.
Well, hey, maybe whenever it airs, we can link it from the show notes. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, but the problem is who actually watches TV anymore? I don't. I'm probably never going to see it, but if they send me a link, I'll forward it to you. How about that?
That's what we need to do.
Sweet.
Well, Brad, close us out, man.
Yeah, man. What a great, I love it. I love meeting new people. And that's one thing about this podcast. It's been so much fun as we've met so many people that we didn't know, or I didn't know, and maybe Bryan knew, or I knew and Bryan didn't know. And we got to meet and have a conversation just about our experiences. And so this has been a unique conversation. Of course, we've learned about all kinds of things from herping to, well, we'll call it caving instead of spelunking, right? Yeah. I like caving is a whole lot easier to say. But just the stories behind that. And it does, the more I think about, the more that resonates with me of our goal is to maybe look a little deeper and find the things that are down there. And we have to look, and most of the time, when we're looking at a person or we're looking at a mountaintop or a mountainside, there's usually a lot more beneath the surface than we're willing to really accept a lot of times, or we underestimate. Maybe that'd be a better way of saying it. We underestimate what's beneath the surface, and so let us take a little more time to do a little more digging, a little more adventuring, and a little more searching, especially with those around us. The people that are in our community and the people that are in our families. Maybe there's a lot more beneath the surface, and if we'll just take a little time to do a little digging and a little adventuring, we might find something amazing. So I really appreciate that, and I'll walk away with that truth for my personal reflection of this conversation. I really appreciate you taking time to hang out with us and to share these stories. We hope this, maybe somebody wants to do that. I'm not going caving or splunking, but maybe someone will get into going and finding some tight spaces, and maybe you'll inspire some others to take up this sport, and maybe they'll get into one of those clubs and meet you there and say, I heard about splunking and caving from the Storied Outdoors. I would love nothing more than to hear that story come full circle. So
yeah, absolutely. That'd be really cool. I'm in Birmingham Grotto and Huntsville Grotto.
There you go. Well, maybe they'll find you. We hope this story encourages people and challenges them to not just experience the outdoors, but take time to write their stories down and reflect on these stories and share their stories around the campfire, and write them down and share them in what we love to call the Storied Outdoors.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please take some time to leave us a review, or better yet, share it with a friend. We hope these stories encourage you to write your own stories and share your own adventures in the Storied Outdoors.
Brad Hill here. There is no better way to share a story than around a campfire. And if you are in the Mobile Bay area, there is no better place to get firewood than our friends at Mobile Bay Firewood. This is a family-owned business, and I personally love using their easy-to-light, kiln-dried firewood in my fire pit. So use promo code MBFTSO for $15 off of your next order at mobilebayfirewood.com. Longtime friends of the podcast, the Growley Leather Company is a family-owned leather goods company in southern Alabama. All of their leather goods are designed and handcrafted to come alongside you in your daily life, share in your adventures, and reflect your character. Bryan and I both enjoy products from Growley Leather. So visit growlyleather.com and use promo code TSO2022 for a 15% discount at checkout. Find you a leather journal and fill it with stories from the storied outdoors.